There's a pretty one, Ulysses. There it is.
Hello BookTube, I'm Sean the Book Maniac. Welcome back to my channel. It's time for Friday Reads. I got up at the crack of dawn today to film this video. I've just finished doing my bail video, which will go up first because I've got plans for today. Today's a national holiday in Japan, so Kenji has the day off and he's going to visit his parents overnight tomorrow, so today's our day to hang out. So I'm excited about that, but I also wanted to get these two videos done, so here I am, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, and caffeinated. The first thing I want to talk about is Audible. I had been a member of Audible for more than a year, maybe a year and a half. Quite enjoyed it. The problem I had with Audible, so I finally have quit. That's my news. I quit my Audible membership last week. Is that I'm such a bailer. Please see my bail video. And Audible has a fantastic return policy. If you don't like an audiobook for any reason, even if you've listened to 75 or 92% of it, you can return it through an automated return process, no questions asked. However, I had the 2 books a month subscription, which is about $25 a month, and most months I would return both of them to get new ones. Most months, at least 1 and often 2, and so finally they clamped down on me and said, please don't take advantage of our generous return policy, and they had a point. So then I just started buying extra credits so that I wasn't always returning. But you get a 5-minute preview of the audiobook before you buy it, but that's not long enough for me to know how I really feel about the narration. And the narration is key. If I don't connect with the audio narrator, it's not going to work for me. And so, and sometimes the narration was good, but I didn't like the book. So I am not an employee of TuneIn, which is an app that you can get. I don't know if it's on Android, but it's certainly on iOS or on Apple. But I took out a premium subscription to TuneIn a few months back when I found out they had about 40,000 audiobooks, and there's no monthly limit. So you have access to these 40,000 audiobooks all the time. So with the Audible membership, I had the 2 books a month, so I would only be allowed 2 books every month. TuneIn is just help yourself. So you can try something and bail, and there's no tally. It's all available to you. And they have about 70% of what Audible had. And it's half the price. I think I'm paying about $12 or $15 a month. I'm now using TuneIn exclusively. I also have a membership to Scribd, which I won't take a time to explain in detail, but I have a 1 audiobook a month credit with that membership as well. So that's enough for me. I have started 2 novels this week that I'm really excited about. The first one I talked about on my 5-star prediction video, and I've started it. And I'm doing this one as an audio text combo. I have the hardcover here, and I'm listening to the audio on TuneIn, and I'm doing them simultaneously. John Boyne's The Heart's Invisible Furies. This starts out so compellingly, you can hardly put it down. I read the opening sentence on that 5-star prediction video, but that was a while ago, and probably one of the best opening lines in literature. So I'm going to read it to you again. Long before we discovered that he had fathered 2 children by 2 different women, one in Drimoleague and one in Clonakilty, Father James Monroe stood on the altar of the Church of Our Lady, Star of the Sea, in the parish of Goleen, West Cork, and denounced my mother as a whore. And it just goes from there. I'm only 30 pages into it, but wow. And the audio narration, I don't know who the narrator is, but lovely Irish accent. It's to die for. This might be one that I take a few months to read. It's almost 600 pages, and it's so wonderful. I don't know, it's really early. It could go south. Hear really good reviews of it, and I am really enjoying it so far. So that's a nice way to start the month of November. I'm equally enthusiastic about this one. This is a Canadian novel from 2002. This is the second time that I've owned this book, and I'm finally reading it. I'm doing a buddy read with 4 or 5 lovely readers on Litsy. It's called The Lost Garden by Helen Humphreys. So far it's set in London, 1941. The only other thing I know about it, because there's a long write-up here, but here's a discussion topic. I don't read the synopsis on the inside jacket or on the back cover. Almost never. So I have no idea where the story's going. I don't want to know. I want to discover it for myself. But no, 99% of the time I don't read the synopsis. So it starts out London during the Blitz, 1941. And the only other thing I know about it, and the reason that I tracked it down again, is I have a copy, or I think I have a copy in a box in Canada. We should have a drinking game every time Sean says quintessential, or I have it in a box in Canada, or what are my other sayings? You have to take a drink. Show notes. Vlog. Anyway, the only other thing that I know about this is that it's kind of an homage to Virginia Woolf's Mrs. Dalloway, and I reread Mrs. Dalloway recently for another book that's an homage. Please stay tuned, it's coming right up. And I thought, I might as well finally get around to this book. The writing, I'm only on page 7, but the writing is so beautiful. I'm just going to read you a short description of London. It's literally, they're not even sentences, they're fragments on the first page. The wild, lovely clutter of London. Small streets that twisted like rivers. Austere stone cathedrals. The fast, muddy muscle of the Thames, holding the city apart from itself. The tension of that moving gap. Palpable. Felt. I love that. And this is a short little one, so I'll read this one, I don't know about quickly, but it won't take too long. Those two make me feel really good about what kind of a reading month it's going to be. I've also started on audio another Irish novel called Conversations with Friends by Sally Rooney, and I'm only a chapter into it. I'd be hard-pressed to even say what it's about, but it's so far about the friendship between two young women, one of whom is bisexual. I guess one is lesbian, the other's bisexual, because they had previously dated. Anyway, I think it might end up being too light for me, but I'm enjoying the, again, lovely female Irish narrator's voice is telling me the story, and I don't know how I'll feel about up until I listen to more. Do you hear that? That is my rice cooker. So my rice is ready. I am going to eat breakfast as soon as I finish filming. Grilled fish on rice, and the Japanese name of the fish is mekajiki, and I can't remember what it translates to in English. Maybe swordfish, but it's quite delicious. So, the rice smells good. So this is the other book that's an homage to Virginia Woolf's Mrs. Dalloway. Johannesburg by Fiona Melrose. I just got a bare start on it at the end of October and then put it aside to try and finish some stuff up. And now am back to it and getting, I'm still not very far into it, but I'm 20 pages. So I'm far enough into that it's starting to hook me. It's about a group of people in Johannesburg the day that Nelson Mandela dies. The white family, the middle-aged daughter, has come home from America reluctantly to throw her cantankerous mother an 80th birthday party, and this little exchange between them I loved. The daughter says, "You're turning 80 and I'm having a party for you. Only people you love, no one else." "How many people do I love?" Her mother was becoming impatient, which meant cruelty would follow. 20? It was closer to 40. Oh, dear God! A disaster already. I'm not coming, and that's final. So there's the family dynamic there. But I get all verklempt when I try to talk about Nelson Mandela, so the setting, the day of his death, is a good one for me. So I hope that I will end up enjoying it as much as I did Melrose's debut from last year, Midwinter. Quote, quote, quote. Today's a day of quotes. This one's a longer quote from a story in this Mavis Gallant collection. This quote is about a woman who's a compulsive reader. I notice as I'm getting closer to the end of this book that Mavis Gallant, so it's also closer to the end of Mavis Gallant's life, that she's writing fiction about her own childhood, which was a very unhappy one. And in this one, the girl is talking about her mother in Quebec. Most of Gallant's fiction is set throughout Europe, but these late stories, some of them are back in Mavis Gallant's home province of Quebec, basically, suburban Montreal. She read one book after another without looking up, without scraping away the frost on the windows. "The Russians, you know, the Russians," she said to her mother and me, glancing around in the drugged way adolescent readers have. "They put salt on the windowsills in winter." Yes, so they did, in the 19th century, in the boyhood of Turgenev, of Tolstoy. The salt absorbed the moisture between two sets of windows sealed shut for half the year. She must have been in a Russian country house at that moment, surrounded by a large Russian family, living out vast Russian complications. The flat white fields beyond her imaginary windows were like the flat white fields she would have observed if only she had looked out. She was myopic. The pupil, when she had been reading, seemed to be the whole of the eye. And my last topic for Friday Reads is an article I just read this morning from last week's New Yorker magazine online. I'll put a link in the show notes. It's called When British Authors Write American Dialogue, or Try to, by James Ledbetter. And I really enjoyed it. So it's about the difference between American English and British English, and when British authors they write American characters and they have British expressions coming out of their mouths that just don't ring true. So that was all interesting. What it reminded me of, because I so often listen to audiobooks while reading the text simultaneously, I sometimes catch the editing that has been done to change American English to British English or vice versa. So if I have an audiobook that's from America, but I'm reading the book from Britain, there's often many small changes to the diction and expressions and vocabulary. That's pretty interesting, and that's one of the benefits. Is it a benefit? But one interesting thing that comes out of doing those two processes in tandem. In the article, it was interesting. He talked about sometimes they don't edit for the American audience or the British audience because it costs so much more. To buy the publication rights for a digital imprint is far cheaper than changing it and having to do a whole copy edit again. So that was interesting. But certainly some publishers do it, because I encounter it frequently when I do the audio text combo. More relevant to me is it's not just British English, American English, it's the Latinate diction that sometimes makes British prose unbearable to read for me. Not that, I love so many British writers, so before you start castigating me, but some British prose is leaden with Latinate diction, and I've talked about the Anglo-Saxon Latinate thing before, and I don't really know what I'm talking about other than what I feel here. I'd like to do some more study of that. But it made me think of the one novel that one of the many novels I bailed on last year, called The Fortunes by Peter Ho Davies. Now, Peter Ho Davies, as far as I understand it, is Chinese and Welsh, which is fascinating. And he wrote a novel about the Chinese-American experience, starting Gold Rush, I think, way back anyway. So it was a historical novel that carried up to the present. And the diction was so Latinate, so British for this Chinese American story. It just rubbed me the wrong way, and I couldn't stand it, even though the story itself was pretty interesting. So I think that's all I have to say today. What are you up to reading wise or otherwise this weekend? I won't get a chance to do any reading today by the time I get these two videos edited and meet the man. Oh, and I also have a vlog coming of another Tokyo bookstore vlog, so that should be up this weekend sometime. But get back to reading tomorrow and probably read all weekend. Have a great weekend yourself. Thanks for stopping by.